Today I have with me an awesome guest. I have the honor to be in the room with Kristin Gutierrez today, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Kristin, because I'm just so excited to know more about you.
What's up? Thank you so much for having me. I have really enjoyed our friendship over the past half year, getting to know you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. My name is Kristin Gutierrez. I am known as the Say Yes Queen. I turned what happened to me April 17th, 2023, when I lost my six-figure job unexpectedly as the breadwinner of my family in the midst of a financial crisis within my family, and turned it into what happened for me by truly leaning into my purpose and monetizing it. And now I'm so gratefully blessed to be able to help others with high ticket offers, selling one to many, and not hating what they're doing. So I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Well, thank you, Kristin. You know, what has stood out the most with you and during the time that I have known you, I have followed Kristin from this place of despair. And I mean, talk about somebody not knowing what to do in life. And I think everybody can kind of recognize that moment in your life where you're like, oh my gosh, like what do I do now? You know, like everybody recognized this time where you're like, I did not expect this to happen. I did not foresee this in my life. Like, what, where am I going next? And I think the biggest inspiration for me, Kristin, I think a lot of people can really recognize or be inspired by this, is your whole messy to momentum.
Mm.
Messy to momentum.
Mhm.
I love that. Tell me more about that and how you kind of created that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. One of my mentors actually urged me, as everyone always said to me, you inspire me by being the person to have done this, and doing that, to create a framework around what it is, how I go from not knowing what the heck to do and to actually getting after it. What I've learned along the way is that our brains release dopamine, that feel good chemical, when we take one step, when we start to put ourselves into momentum, even though it's messy or imperfect. And so, in fact, I'm writing a book called Say Yes and Figure It Out, the perfect framework, which is a joke, for taking massive imperfect action, right? And so it's like how to lean into imperfect action, knowing that we don't, none of us none of us wake up every day 100% motivated. In fact, today I did not want to go to the gym, but I went to the gym and I'm showing up on the podcast, right? With, sweaty hair underneath this hat. Because that's how I build momentum. There's one more story that's like the gym and me. We aren't like best friends yet. I don't know. I know you, but I don't know about others watching, like how old you are and how young your kids might be. I'm very old to have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, right? And so they're just like so much energy. And I had let myself go for years, 6 years, 7 years, climbing the corporate ladder, not COVID was we were in the middle of a pandemic, right? And I really, I stopped self-love. I stopped like everything that had to do with caring for myself. And I started showing up again. And it's messy. Going to the gym when you used to be a soccer athlete and you used to like actually like know how to run a half marathon and things like that. Showing up again is hard. Has that ever happened to you where like, is there something, whether it's the gym or something else?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody can recognize this. And as you're speaking, Kristin, I mean, I love this. I love this so much because you actually opened up a door for this giving me permission to
Mm.
show up imperfect. And I know, you know, we're followers of Eileen Wilder and we have different mentors, but there's part of how Kristen kind of put herself out there. You know, if anybody have seen any of her videos, I mean, she just shows up with eye infection or dirty hair or whatever it is under her hat, and she's not worried about like saying it. And I love how you're talking about this part of self-love, right? Because a lot of my audience are still building this part of self-love, creating
Yeah.
more peace in their life, more stillness. And it really comes from within.
Yeah.
However, there's kind of a parallel to this, okay? I'm kind of getting in visual here, okay? There's a parallel because my road have always been this go within, be still, you know, do the mirror work, do the, you know, get rid of this limiting beliefs and, you know, build that self-love, which is a beautiful process. And especially when we recognize that we've kind of let ourselves go and
Mhm.
we've kind of lost part of ourselves
Mhm.
through COVID or in a relationship or after divorce or
All of the
whatever
things.
we might have done. There is a parallel shift with I'm kind of exploring myself of really stepping into action. But the action is the back door to self-love. I kind of see it as a back door, which is exactly what you're talking about, the imperfect
Yeah.
steps, right?
Yeah.
This sense of I am allowing myself to just show up as who I am, as I maybe see my life. I don't know why I'm doing it or what I'm doing, but allowing yourself to show up in front of the camera in an interview like this, at your kid's school, with your neighbors, in your relationship, you know, in my journey and in my relationship, stepping into my true power and knowing who I was, I had to change how I showed up in a relationship as well. And that's a choice I have. But what I didn't know at that time is that it was okay to not do it right
Mm.
or not do it perfect. Like it
Mhm.
all counts, right?
Yeah.
Like it all counts. Can you talk more about how much and why it's so important?
I I I knew it's like the gym analogy is going to go throughout our whole interview, right? Because there's story after story where I don't know about you, but I always gave myself the narrative that I was a slippery slope. So if it came to eating bad or going or not going to the gym or showing up for myself, or I was 20 years in corporate sales, so like making phone calls one day, if I went too many hours, too many days, too many weeks without doing the thing that I told myself I was going to do or that I needed to do, that I was going to ride the slippery slope. The narrative I told myself was that it was over, which is so interesting because after I had my second kid, so in my early 40s, in the middle of a pandemic, having my second kid, I actually got promoted twice within a 9-month period in corporate because I finally got rid of all of the distractions that I was choosing to keep in my life. In addition to being what then became a VP of sales, I was also a realtor. I was a Beachbody coach. I read the book, The One Thing. And that book changed my life, changed the way I looked at multitasking versus single sourcing. Single tasking was the new multitasking. But as that relates to the gym and kind of now, or like the narrative around the gym is one day recently, oh, you know, I recently moved. And so there was a 2-week period of just like chaos, right? And I didn't go to the gym. I went to the gym one day right after that, and I literally told myself, all you need to do is walk into the gym. You don't need to, I don't think I lifted a weight or did a treadmill or went to a class. Like I lift weights now, so that's why I say that. But like, I just physically swiped the gym card and walked into the gym.
Mm.
Well, I did a lap and left, because
Mhm.
that put me back in the state of action. That gave me permission, right? To get over myself, to get over the ego, to think that it has to look a certain way in order to be. I actually made a post later that week, which again, this is not that long ago, but depending on when people watch this, is like, that said, the reason I will succeed versus almost everyone else, like 99% of everyone else, is because I'll start over as many times as possible. Now we can talk about that more, but like, I want to pause, right? So like, just show up, whatever that looks like. Who just walks into the gym and leaves? Like, that's
Yeah. So
crazy.
I want to ask a question. Okay, so I can hear people watching this, and I can hear them say, okay, Kristin, you go in, you go out again. I mean, there's no purpose, right? Like, you didn't go to the gym, you didn't achieve anything. Okay, I can go into my gym and out again, and then I'm going to feel guilty because I didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, releasing the expectations of what perfect looks like or what the accomplishment looks like, and leaning into this idea that really, truly, the dopamine that gets the feel good chemical that gets released in our brain when we put ourselves in motion, even when it's super janky, as Eileen says, or imperfect or messy, even when the action we do is messy, simply putting ourselves so this is my 4-step framework. We'll talk about it too, but like, the first step is to take a step. Well, the first step is to decide, sorry. So I needed to decide that the gym was still important to me, even though I missed 2 weeks, because I'm changed my narrative that I'm not a slippery slope person anymore. That my narrative now is I will succeed because I will start over. Words chosen carefully, not I failed. I didn't fail as many times as I need to, which is also a fine way to say it, but I choose I start over as many times as I need to.
Oh, I
So that
love
just like
that.
releases, I can see it on your face, right? Like, it just
Yeah.
releases the feeling, the pressure of perfection.
Yeah. Oh, I think so many people need to hear that. And thank you for bringing that up, because I grew up with perfectionism. And I think any higher conscious, self aware, driven, ambitious person who is listening to this, which is most of the people that I serve, particularly women, trip themselves up a lot because they they kind of have an idea where they're going. They kind of see where they're going. But when things are not up to par with that, or it doesn't show up fast enough, they second guess themselves, right?
Mm.
And then we set too high expectations. And then at the end of the day, I think everybody can relate to this, instead of recognizing the one
Mm.
thing, or, there's usually more than one thing, but if we've completed that one thing, that day is enough momentum for the next day. Instead of recognizing, I did not get to this, I did not get to that, and and then we feel crummy, and then we feel bad about ourselves, and then we feel guilty, and we feel we're not moving. And you're saying, just show up at the gym. Okay, like,
Shocking.
let's just show up at the gym, swipe your card. I have never heard that before. Like, Kristen, it is like, okay, you're giving everybody permission. I mean, I think I just want everybody to hear that. I love this. Just swipe your card. Just that is enough step to create momentum. That's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? I
Because
love that.
your brain goes from thinking, I'm a failure, I didn't do it, I always do this, I always start something, don't finish it. Like,
Yeah,
this is, I don't know about you, but like, this is what I think, right? To
yeah,
saying, no, girl, like, you did it. You actually went to the gym. I think it's like, yeah, it's the permission to show up for ourselves, the permission to change the narrative.
absolutely. I work with so many people who wants to be better in relationships, or they want to find themselves, which at the end really strengthen relationships, becoming a conscious partner, having brilliant relationships. And part of that means that you really have to commit to doing something different and the permission to do a do-over or do something again, right? There's no failure. If you catch yourself yelling at your kids, as soon as you catch yourself, right, you can be
Yeah.
like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going down that road again, right? And then
Yeah.
come over and just say to your partner or just say to a person or whatever, it's like, can I just like time out? Can I just pretend that that didn't happen? And then can I just come in? Can I just get a redo? Right? And then your brain is going on fire, right? Now you're creating new networks in your brain.
Oh no, are you still there?
Habit crushing, right? I say habit crushing is soul flushing. Habit crushing is soul flushing. And I love that. You gotta crush these habits, but you do that one step at a time.
One step at a time. Yes. And so yeah, so the decision is step one. The step is step two. I
Mm.
worked in corporate America for so long, and I myself as an individual contributor making phone calls as a salesperson or as a leader, I became conscious that kind of what you were saying earlier, 100 phone calls in a day, or at one company, it was 20,000 outreach a month. 20,000 outreach a month. And we didn't have robots or AI helping us or automation or marketing. This was like individual. That's insane. And so that was insane. But like it's like, how do you configure it so that it becomes fun? But how do you just take a step? The third step is to lean in. This is almost where, how do you ask for help? How do you partner with somebody else? How do you, like, your community, your mentor, your coach, your somebody, like, how do you phone a friend, right? And just lean in, because like we can't do it all alone, or lean into your significant other and say, yo, I messed up, right? This weekend with my kids, like, hey, mommy, right away, I've gotten a lot of mental health help on the side. So it's kind of like now I'm able to apologize for things. I think that holds a lot of people back anyway.
Mm.
But then the fourth step is to celebrate. So it's only four steps. It's decide, take a step, lean in, and then celebrate.
Mm.
And and then you start the cycle over as many times a day or a week or a month or a season as you need to.
Ah,
You
I
don't even have
love
to wait till
that.
the
It's
next
like recycling. We're going green. I love that.
activity.
Why do you think the celebration part, the fourth step, is so important?
Oh man. I have learned to celebrate the heck out of everything. Were we off camera or on camera when you were complimenting me on like my positive, or is that my cleaner? Like my positive outlook on life? Um, I really have, truly am like a glass half full type person. The word hope, do you choose a word for every year? Like every new year, do you choose a word as your theme for the year? I
No.
started to choose, instead of like a resolution that we can so easily fail, right? Because again, you're in a failure mindset. I started to simply choose a word. My Then I decided a couple years ago that my word for my entire life was hope. So like
Ah.
one singular word, hope, right?
Mm.
Yeah. And so how do you embody that concept of hope, right? When you, instead of looking at something where if I don't meet all of the steps, I fail. We're so often just looking at, here's another great book, The Gap and the Gain. Have you read that? The Gap and the Gain? I'm
I don't
listening
think
right
so.
now.
I've heard about that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. I'm just
Yeah.
finishing it right now on Audible.
Yeah.
It's so good. It talks about stop comparing ourselves to others and start measuring our own progress, hour after hour, day after day, month after month, and do like 90-day sprints. It's such a powerful book for what you're teaching and coaching on.
Yeah.
Because it takes the pressure off. Well, just because I missed 2 weeks in the gym doesn't give me an excuse to go into the slippery slope. That is why if I measure the gain, holy cow, I worked out for 5 weeks, Monday through Friday, which
Mm.
means I'm in the mega gain. I'm not in missing 2 weeks does not put me in a gap,
Yeah.
right? Because the long-term picture of the last 90 days is I'm in a mega gain. And so
So
just
this
kind
is
of like,
really what creates that momentum, right? I mean, this is
yeah,
what creates momentum. If we focus on the gain, we focus on the, the celebration of what we do well,
yeah,
because as humans, our brain is wired to see problems, right? Through evolution, we're still wired to see threat. We're still wired to see problems, and people coming in and want to free themselves really have a really hard time celebrating this,
yeah,
right? You have a really hard time giving themselves credit, even recognizing and acknowledging on
yeah,
credit, and talk about comparing yourself with others. I mean, I don't know how many times that's a theme in my, time in Tuesdays, or in any workshop that I teach, is how do you truly free yourself from this notion of comparing ourselves to others? Do you mind speaking on that for a
yeah.
moment?
It is so interesting because we're back to that word. Like I lost the word celebrate in all of those analogies, but it is like, I think that like most people aren't clapped for beyond like middle school, high
Yeah,
school graduation is like
yeah,
the last time people are clapped for. Yet
right.
we should be clapping for ourselves
Yeah.
every single day. There's so much to that. Um, and it really is true that if you measure your own self against your own progress, it's not even, I'm not comparing myself to others. You're not even, because that, according to the gap in the gain, that actually, even just by the fact of thinking that you're not measuring yourself against others, puts you in a gap. And the gain is all about like, no, the one true person that matters. I lost a second job this year. The whole story is, we don't have enough time for it, but it is actually kind of crazy. When I lost a job April 17th, 2023, and then Q4 of 2023, I took another job thinking I was doing the right thing for my family. And then, well, it wasn't the right thing because the universe really didn't want me working for someone else. And so I go from, obviously, I just like all the things. And so I lost this job and I realized like, oh my gosh, right? How do I lean in? How do I celebrate the heck out of, now I have all of the time? And I decided in that moment that no one else's opinions pay my bills. And I know that
Mm.
we say that. I know that people hear that. I constantly let, in addition to like comparing myself to others, I constantly let other people's opinions affect me. Oh, there's the girl Kristin who always posts selfies on social media. And it just eats you alive when it's happening, quote, to you, not for you. And I just decided April 2024 that that was it. And I was not only going to not care respectfully what other people thought of my posts or what I was doing or how I was pivoting, right? But that also I was going to 10x my impact, those I was serving, 10x my influence, those I was touching as a result of serving more, and therefore 10x my income.
So letting go of that got
Letting
you into some
mega.
extraordinary momentum, it sounds like. So what inspired you to do what you do now, and who do you serve?
Yeah, I serve entrepreneurs who are stuck like I was right? I was leaning into my expertise. I was monetizing myself, but I didn't realize, which is kind of ironic, but like I didn't realize you don't really monetize yourself, you monetize a system. And so the beauty is you can charge a lot of money for that system. And so I help entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, also authors and speakers. And I help that group of people charge more for what they do, and really charge higher prices. And then I teach them how to sell in a one-to-many format, because last year, the reason I kind of got stuck in 2023 was because I was selling myself. It paid the bills, so that was cool. I was selling sales expertise, consulting, but like if I didn't get it right, like I was seen as to not do well for my clients instead of selling a system to my clients.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a home run. Like my clients loved me, but like it wasn't the other problem I got stuck in. I was selling one-to-one. So I was constantly in my day fulfilling on the things I was selling, and then I didn't have enough time to sell more. And
Mm,
as a salesperson, I know you got to keep your pipeline full. And I just constantly got stuck. And I was literally, someone say, back to back to back to back to back to back to back meetings. I was more busy, which we should also wrap up to talk about hustle and grind versus rest and restore, right? Like
mm,
let's open loop that. But I was so busy being busy.
yeah.
And I was like, hold on. A, how do I scale to 1 million? And B, this isn't the life that I envisioned working for myself. I didn't really envision drinking Mai Tais or margaritas on the beach, but like, so how do I get that? And so I pay for a lot of coaching, I pay for a lot of help. And this is
Mm,
how I serve people now is looking at what people are currently doing, seeing what reverse engineering we can do, make irresistible offers, charge higher prices, and then
mm,
teach them the system of selling one-to-many so that they don't hate their life and think that they need to get another job and get stuck feeling like there's not enough hours in the day. It's so crazy because
yeah.
I only work now like 11 to 2.
Wow. I mean, who does not want that, right?
Yeah.
It's like Kristin on fire. Kristin, has the impact in allowing people, it sounds like allowing people to really monetize their passion and what they're good at, the
Yeah.
system, right? And that's one of the things I have learned too, is that we're not trying to sell ourselves here. And I think a lot of times we put too much pressure on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I can just like hear some of the women out there like, but I'm it, I'm mom, and I'm wife, and I am assistant this, or I'm an employee, and I am fulfilling all these responsibilities. But where where is you in it? Where is your
Mm-hmm.
calling in it? What do you love to do? How do you want to influence and impact the world? And you're saying, it's not so much about working harder. It's really more about working smarter and recognizing that these ceilings that we think we have, these limiting beliefs, these expectations that we put on ourselves are not real. Like they're just society and how we're brought up, right? That is put on us. And nobody teaches us this, right? Nobody teaches that we can literally create a system based on our gifts, based on who we are, and sell that. And we can just be who we are and work less.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
make it sound very
Well, Malcolm Gladwell
simple.
says we are experts when we've spent 10,000 hours doing a thing. I host like monthly master classes, and we did the math one time. I wouldn't encourage you to do the math. Was like, how many years am I old versus, and then how many hours am I alive? Like the point is we are all we all are experts in something. And so I love that you were like, oh, I'm a mom, or I'm a wife, right? Like whatever our expertise is, whatever we're good at, you simply need a good coach to teach you a system for how to create a system of what you do, which is why there's so many influencers. But like mom, I can't remember her name, and it's fair, it's fine. There's a lot of them on Instagram who sell things. I mean, yes, they're getting paid by affiliates and all the things, but like the ones I truly enjoy following, they figured out how to systematize what they do. She homeschools 4 kids, for example, and that's what she educates her audience on, right? And she's created a massive following, and then obviously makes money selling the system of homeschooling. Plus now there's other income that comes in for her because she's got, companies wanting to pay her for her huge following. But like the core of that is a system. She has a system. She created a system in order to homeschool 4 boys of all different ages,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
sells the system to others.
What do you think holds people back?
Well, I think you touched on it a lot, is like our limiting beliefs. I love how you said, well, the way I say what you said is like the ceiling, our former ceiling becomes the floor. Because actually, as I know, but like we can do anything. Our brains as a kid, you have a 4-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, like, and a 6-year-old, like their imagination is tuned in. In fact, ever since learning everything I know now, only in the last, 18 months, I I'm so grateful to learn it when my kids are 6 and 4, because now when my 6-year-old's like dreaming crazy random things up, I'm like, yes, keep dreaming. But so many of us as kids are told to like come back to reality, right? And that is the thing, is like, no matter how we were raised, we were all raised like that. So, relinquish all of the pressure you put on yourself or on others. Tony Robbins says anything can change now. Just decide right now. He calls it change your state, like snap your fingers, like change your state right now. You can choose to be somebody new. And you can choose right now that your current ceiling is now your floor. Whether that's income goals, whether that's relationship goals, whether it's life goals, whatever it is, like, because it's limitless. It's not,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's so powerful. It's just so powerful because our mind is so powerful. Our intention is powerful. I mean, the whole game of manifestation, law of attraction, it all stems from what we visualize, what we write down, what we speak, right? What we
Mhm.
see. And I love how you brought kids into this with the imagination. I think my husband told me he read some research about at age 5 that they use like 90% of their imagination, and by the time they enter high school it's only 5%. Something, don't quote me kind of on the numbers, but it was like, oh my gosh, because children enter into this very rigid format of quote unquote reality, right?
Mhm.
Like you're supposed to do it this way, and this is the only way to learn. And how many kids really learn under those circumstances in school, right? And, you know, be realistic, and you can't, dream too much about that. And that's kind of nonsense. And this is also where kids get away from their intuitive powers, right?
Mhm.
Or speaking with spirits, if you believe in that. I mean, there's so much that we put a lid on for children, and that may also be a takeaway from today's podcast, or this episode, is how are we influencing our children, and how do we allow us to celebrate this vastness of imagination, because it really is the imagination that starts creating momentum, right? It
Mm.
starts creating momentum. I use this technique a lot. I call it manifest your own success. Manifest. It's that notion. I got it from Kyle Cease.
Hmm.
who is a comedian out in your neck of the woods.
Fun.
Um, he's talks about personal growth and the big I and the small I, like ego and our higher self and stuff like that. Um, Speak about an event that has not yet happened as it has already happened. And I think actually Eileen just sent an email recently that talked about that exact thing. Like, okay, if you're nervous about this performance or speaking on stage, right? You talk about it as you've already done it,
Mhm.
right? Last week I went on stage and I felt this, and afterwards it happened. And so you celebrate the moment that has not yet happened, which really just tricks the brain to believe that it's already happened, right? I mean, this
Right.
is the power you're tapping into. This is what you're kind of talking about, right?
I read so many books. Yes, 100%. Like I read so many. I'm reading now. Again, like I used to say I wasn't a reader. I read right after college for about a year and a half because I commuted on a train in Chicago. So from 24 to 41, I didn't read. Isn't that crazy? And then I learned of this concept, no extra time net. So I started going when I started going on walks again and about a year ago, and I started listening to things which annoyed a lot of people because they're like, listen to nature. And I'm like, okay, like you do you, I'll do me. Right. And so I finally started to listen to a lot of books and I listen to them at 2x now. I like love them. So I was at the gym this morning. I was after my weights, I was listening to The Gap and the Gain. But you're reminding me of like 10x is easier than 2x, which is another book by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And they really just talk about quantum leaping, which to me is a little bit about what you're talking about, because like with manifestation and mindset, something that I've learned a lot recently is like these events have already happened. We just have to align ourselves to the point on whatever the line in which they're occurring. And so,
Mm,
yes, to celebrate something, my yacht, as if it's already happened because it has, right, puts me in a position to really not just manifest it and dream and imagine it, but to actually make it come to fruition. Because now I'm going to align my steps to the thing that is most likely to get me the result that I desire.
wow.
And then there's
I
quantum leap.
mean, this is, say that
Oh
again.
yeah, and then there's quantum leaping because it doesn't
Yeah.
need to take
Mm,
me 100 years to come
mm,
up with $100 million,
mm,
right?
mm. Yeah, because that's the kind of the rational brain. Like it has to happen this way, but we're kind of creating shortcuts here.
Mhm.
These leaps that you're talking about, that we can bypass a lot of that really by lifting the ceiling of limitation
Yeah.
and cheating this system that society has put on us of it's supposed to be this way and whatever we see is black and white, but it's a lot more powerful than that.
Oh, this is so
So
fun.
if you would give an advice or a suggestion for somebody who kind of feel lost right now, like they know there's more to life, all right, they know there's more to life, they feel a bit stuck, they are become more self-aware, they're starting to read the books, and it just doesn't all make sense yet.
Mhm.
what would you what would you tell them?
Yeah, good. I mean, for me, I default back to that four simple framework.
Yeah.
Decide whatever it is, decide in the grand picture, today is the day I change, or decide today is the day I filed the paperwork to divorce my husband. I mean, that was it's a crazy example, but like that was the decision, right? Decide I'm going to make 100 phone calls. Decide I'm going to make, and then just take one step. It's like,
Yeah.
just make one phone call. Just walk yourself into the gym. Like
Mm,
it does, like release yourself from overcomplicating everything, but decide, take a step, and then lean in. Call me, call you, call your friend, call somebody and be like, oh my gosh, I just went to the gym. I walked in and I walked out. Like I made one phone call, like I did something. That's what leaning in is all about. And then celebrate it in the moment
Wow.
and then start over. You've all of a sudden put yourself with that little, if that doesn't feel like a big, I'm not like, don't go run a marathon tomorrow, right? Like very simply put on your running shoes. When I first, after that second kid, man, I maybe it's because I had a kid in the middle of COVID, the pandemic. I don't know, but like I gained so much weight, if anyone else can relate to that. And I was just became so lethargic. I and I work from home. I've worked from home since 2010. I've worked from home, right? My win would be, and I don't have a mailbox. My mailbox is was inside the house, but my win would be to proverbial, like just to walk to the mailbox. My win would be to walk to the end of my street and back. Like that was my win, barefoot.
Wow.
I would like,
Wow.
and I couldn't be bothered to put on shoes. That's why I would do it barefoot. Like I'm barefoot right now. Like, like I need the perfect outfit. If I'm going to go, I need to look good. If I'm going to go, we put a lot of excuses and roadblocks in our
Yeah.
own way. So hopefully
But were
that.
you able to recognize at that moment, Kristin, were you able to recognize that making it to the mailbox and back was a win and you could kind of stay there? Was that
I think it's in
framework in
hindsight. No,
place?
I think now I can recognize, which is why I can coach others how to
Ah,
go from messy
yeah,
into momentum. But I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired.
yeah,
Like Facebook is a and like our phones, how it shows us all of our old memories. And I still have a long way to go. But the funny thing is, I was at the gym this morning and I was talking to two guys and I was like, oh yeah, hot mom bod, like I'm getting my hot mom bod or whatever. Um, and they were like, oh, what you should do. And I'm like, yeah, but I know me and I know that consistency compounds. And the first 2 months of this like thing was simply to show up. Right now that I'm consistent in showing up, now I'm ready to get a little bit more serious about what I'm eating or to get a little bit more serious about how I'm lifting and showing up. Because like just take the pressure off yourself to think that if
yeah.
I don't do it this way, then it's not perfect.
Ah, and I also hear a part of you, Kristin, in this, that you really listened
Mm,
to what was right for you. There's kindness, there's patience, there is a big portion of self-care and self-love in the fact that I have recognized what my steps are. And it doesn't really matter what anybody says around me. I am so focused on my own pace, my own race, my own marathon of just making it to the gym that there is so much love in that. And I hope people can really recognize and hear that this is not just a step. It's about showing up for you. It's about who you are in that moment. And then nobody else is supposed to be doing the same thing. You do what works for you. And I could just hear when you talked about those steps to the gym is that the more we practice just those small steps, which a lot of people would say maybe are minor, if you practice that enough, it becomes your voice.
mhm,
I mean, now it comes from the inside, and you are more likely to feel more of that voice, feel confident, feeling reassured, being able to celebrate because you're going it in your pace, you're honoring yourself for it. And I also hear that if you are continuously recycling those steps, that you get to that 6 months or the year and you look back and you're like, wow, now you can see
wow.
the
Yeah.
difference, right?
Yep.
Like you can't even believe, like, where was I a year ago, right? That's when things kind of blow up in your mind if you just kind of stay focused on small steps at a time. And I
Yep.
think that's sometimes what people are missing, and why you say that these steps are so important, right? That it's not so much about what it looks like today, right? It's that habit
Mhm.
of momentum
Mhm.
that would get you somewhere. Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah,
All right.
consistency
Well,
really does compound. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I have just loved this conversation so much. We have a lot of things in common. A lot of our stories are, we kind of come from some of the same backgrounds. Funny when you talked about the books. I was not into books my whole life. I read a lot of books half. I love self-help books, but I just had a hard time reading until I discovered audiobooks. And I'm like, why did nobody tell me that audiobooks is like a completely different level of reading?
Yeah.
Like now I can read all the time. It gets into my cells. I read a page in a book and I'm like I've fallen asleep.
Sleep. Yeah.
I can't do it. My brain doesn't work that way. And now I listen to books and I can't get enough. And I appreciate you saying that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally relate to that. Um, but you know, at the end of our time together, Kristin, is there something final that you would like to say to the people that are listening to this, and then finally kind of where they can find you?
Oh, yeah. So I guess like you said it earlier and it stuck with me this whole episode, which is like give yourself permission.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to not have do everything perfect in the whatever you've created as the perfect image. Deconstruct that and like lean into the messy. Choose the imperfect action, choose like the thing that doesn't seem like it should go next, and that will help free you from decision fatigue, paralysis by overanalysis, and like getting stuck. Um, did you see that
Oh, what was
thing?
mic drops?
That is so funny. I have a lot. It's a loft. My good friend
Okay,
Jackie's up there cleaning my house. And
I got it.
it's a pillowcase.
Got it. That's amazing.
Okay, so people can find me at Million Dollar Offers Challenge, Million Dollar Offer Challenge, sorry, milliondollarofferchallenge.com. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna put all the links in, find Kristin. So I really appreciate you being here. I think that you're kind of the really good example of somebody who is really embracing the you inside you, really speaking your true voice to the point where this is really just channeled. Thank you.
And
Okay. Channeled, right? By God, universe, whatever we call it. Like when we really get in alignment with ourselves, I believe that we would really just channel the creativity and we become of service to the people. And if you got some help getting to that place, right? Like universe
yeah,
just
lots of
intervene
help.
and be like, no, you're supposed to be doing something else, I'm gonna strip you off of all this stuff and you're just gonna start from square one and build yourself up. And you are, a true inspiration and of all of that. And I think a lot of people are just inspired by your story and how you speak about it and the power that the action steps of going from messy to momentum. So I love that. So thank you so much for being here with me today and connecting. I love it. I appreciate your presence.
Thank you for having me.
All right. All right. You guys take care.